Ready, Kelly? Ready, Kelly? Kelly, are you ready? Hey, Kelly. Ready? We're going to call to order City Council meeting Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. And Madam Secretary, can you do a roll call, please?
Here.
Here.
And just to let y'all know, Councilman Corbell will be late. He'll be here in just a second, so. Okay. And let's pray.
Dear Lord, thank you for letting us be at this meeting tonight. Dear Lord, be with us. Big decisions tonight for our city, dear Lord, and it's something we're going to need your help in. It's very hard to make the decisions for this city and make them where everybody likes them. Dear Lord, be with us. Be with the people that we make decisions for. Help us in all ways we possibly can. Amen.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm going to go ahead and start out with public comments. The City Council welcomes citizens' participation comments in all City Council meetings. Citizens' comments are limited to 3 minutes. Out of respect for everyone's time, the council is not permitted to respond to your comments. The Texas Open Meetings Act requires that the topic of discussions, deliberations be posted on an agenda not less than 72 hours in advance of the council meetings. If your comments relate to the topic that is in the agenda, the council will discuss the topics on the agenda at that time that the topic is discussed and deliberated. Do we have any public comment? Yes, sir. You're right on time. You're gonna have to, one of y'all are gonna have to press the button, because no one can hear if that, well, we're recording it also. Well, we got you covered this time.
Okay. So anyway, my mom and dad are from Naples, and my uncle gave me property to raise service dog to help disabled people. And I met some, as usual, I met some damn good people. The mayor of Omaha, who actually knew the people that I worked for. I'm the sole survivor, the original importers of the Canaan dog from Israel. I brought the dog, people I work for saved this dog from extinction, which is currently recognized by Tennessee. I came here with a pair of Irish Wolfhounds and English Mastiff. I had 20 Irish Wolfhounds at one time and about 10 Mastiffs, which I was training to help disabled, primarily veterans, that had similar disabilities as myself. But I wasn't charging what the government was charging. And since then, the VA wants me to train dogs for them. But since then, I've been in a fire. I've been flown to Tyler in a helicopter due to pneumonia. Survived being on a ventilator. Was driven all the way to the burn center. After my house burned down and my dog that's in this picture saved my life. Both my cars were burned up. But I was fortunate, some of the people I'll just mention, three leaders from Wounded Knee, Russell Means, Professor Brightman, and all of them have passed away. Dennis Banks, my mother-in-law, mother was born on the Chippewa Reservation. Me and Russell Means was very close friends. And dogs have done a lot for me, and this is why I came here to try to share what people done for me. I mean, what dogs and people have done for me. I've shown dogs ever since I was a kid. St. Bernard started with big dogs, so you can see why I'm attracted to big dogs. And at the age of 14, I was in mentally gifted classes for this privileged gifted youth. And Cesar Chavez came to town, and the instructor, Mr. Chavez wants to come and talk to you guys. He came in, but nobody wanted to talk to him but me, because he had two big-ass German shepherds. And I said, I speak Spanish. I said, ¿Cómo se llama su perro? He said, that's striking as boycott. I asked him what his dog's name was. But also, I went to Oxnard High School, and we had a lot of cultural problems at one time, but we were able to do some great things. And I look at the kind of cultural problems that I've had since I've been here. I'm wondering, what the hell would I do, or what can I do? And it ain't been nothing nice, you know. And then you look at what's happening nationally, you know, at this day and time. I look at the people that I'm fortunate to be blessed in my life at such a young age. And I think Cesar Chavez was the main ingredient, Dick Gregory, and plus all the Native Americans that I had the opportunity to be with. I went to school with a lot of movie stars at UC San Diego. And a lot of my classmates done great things medically, National Geographic magazine, stuff like that. But you know, and look at the things you've been a part of and how far you come, and look like, damn, look what, and this is where we are. You know, and I look at the people that I was around at the age of 16, and here I am 70 years old, you know. I had two brothers in Vietnam, and kind of, as I was in the 6th grade when my brother got hit, and I can still remember getting the telegram to my mom, you know. You know, I grew up with Jamal. Jamal Wills was the first black school, smart people. The gift of a mind, and what can you do with it? What can we do with it? We're not animals. We can't always come after the fact. You know, we got to think a little bit. Met Pat at UCL, family, young and sisters, and things on and on. And not past, just, you know, currently too. Bruno Mars. Art for Obama, Clinton, and a whole lot of other people. I try to share because it does something for me. It's like therapy in its own right. It's so American, and it's in times we're so un-American. And we try to bring some real Americanism in instead of this fake stuff. But anyway, I'm not going to take it. I thank you for the little time you've given me. But I shall be back if I have something to talk about. And unfortunately, I do. But thank you for your time anyway.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other comments? Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, we'll go ahead and go into special agenda. Pursuant to Open Meetings Act, Charter 551, Texas Government Code, the City Council will recess into executive session to discuss the following: consultation with attorney and personal matters, to deliberate the appointments, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, and appointment of city manager and discussion of employment agreement. We'll be back. right, we're reconvening into the special session in accordance with Texas Code, Chapter 551. The city council will reconvene into special session to consider action on matters discussed in the executive session. Item number 1 is possible discussion and action appointing a city manager and approving employment agreement. I need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the employment agreement with Mr. Rob Vine to serve as the city manager for the city of Mount Pleasant, commencing employment August the 18th, 2025, assuming full responsibility on September the 4th, 2025.
I second.
Madam Secretary, can you take a vote?
Yes.
Aye.
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 All right, so we do have an item number 2, but before we do, we're gonna take a 15-minute break, and then we have some changes with our audio system that we're just gonna do real quick, just a real quick tutorial or overview or whatever. Just wanna give you a heads up. Hey, and just to let everyone know, Kevin, our new EDC director, is here if y'all haven't met him and you want to. All right, Greg, bring us to it.
Oh, there we go. You can tell we're well versed in this. So we are live now, so people are going to be able to hear us, and we're streaming. So we're going to take a few minutes here. We have one of the things that all of us have noticed, and certainly speakers here, is that we always have to hold down our microphones. So we are hands-free, even for the speaker, and we got to see that tonight when someone was talking to us, is off and on and off and on. So we are now hands-free on the microphones. And so what we wanted to do is just take a couple minutes, because the other thing that happens then is you're gonna there's a green light that's gonna start showing up now for you. So if one of you wants to speak, you won't automatically be able to speak. You'll push your button, let go, green light comes off. That means you're in a queue. That means the computer system's figuring out that after Mayor will point you, he knows who hit it first. Like if two of you wanted to speak, two microphones are on, then the system is going to know that if Debbie hits hers first, Kelly hits her second, is that the mayor's able to hit his and activates Councilmember Corbell first, and then you would stay green, and then it would flow that way. So I thought what we could do is, and the mayor has the ultimate box to turn off. So if I walked away, Mayor, he's able to turn the microphone off and on, and that goes for all of you. So I thought what we could do is run a couple scenarios for you. So I've asked to speak publicly and talk about how this actually is going to work. And so if one of you has a question, if one of you would hit your microphone, your button, just hit it and take your finger off, okay? So you're activated green. Now the mayor knows that you wish to speak when I'm finished. You're not able to have a conversation with me? Yeah, no, nothing's there. So if I finish my presentation, Mayor, then if you want to take it from here.
Is it loud? Oh, now it is. Okay. Okay. So red means I'm up. Okay. All right. So for me to let you talk, I hit my red.
Okay. But he's going to control before anybody can speak. He'll have to turn their microphone.
That make sense, Mayor? Oh, now I'm on. Thank you.
It does.
So yeah, we're gonna test it out. Let's you can turn your own microphone off too. So if I want to turn it off,
Voting. Do we need to discuss how voting's gonna? Do we need to discuss how voting's gonna work? Because we're still working on that.
Do you know who hit it first? Okay. I wasn't sure if he had anything that said. Okay. Well, we hit it at the same time. Yeah.
You just turned yours off. It'll automatically whenever it,
Now, okay.
well, and again, we were talking about if we need to make tweaks or, you know, if it's not working, we'll tweak it.
So we can't, we have been informed by our attorney prior to this meeting about what we can, and we can just talk, how this works. So I thought maybe, Candace, do we mind, can we just do a, can we just go through a sample roll call, how that would actually work? So, what can't happen is Candace can't go on, she can't turn her microphone on, and you can turn yours on. You can't have two at the same time. And so she won't be using the microphone announcing, but everybody will be able to see and hear each of you make your vote. So with that, can we take a... So we're gonna do it the same way as we always do it. So don't hit your, just think about it. We're gonna take the votes the same way as we always do. So
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
and that's how it works.
You'll see her light up, and her answer, and then her light. So they'll see who's voting.
So one of the things that was a problem here in the microphone system, for instance, when you vote, is this will be the new, what you see up there is gonna be, that's gonna stay on as the camera that works here. What would happen when you would vote is it has to reset itself every time. So first, by the time Councilmember Corbell, if she's first, actually got her vote out, the camera would just be zooming in on her. Then it was you next. It has to zoom back out, move over, and go back on you. So by the time you've already voted, and we're probably on to the next person. So by the time you get down to the fourth person, you're still probably on the second or third person. So the zoom could not track fast enough for actually zooming in on your vote. So what people will be able to see it is see it up there as you vote, just normally. No? You shut me off.
Oh, you didn't shut yourself off. All right.
So so there's a camera that zooms in on it?
Not anymore. You were right, Greg.
So we certainly don't need to do this anymore. I think just the reminder is, if you want to talk, you don't have to wait until somebody's done. And I think that's kind of important. Just so you know, I mean, I am accustomed to having systems like this, where actually the mayor does have a board, just like you said, that has all your names on there, and when you want to speak, you push your button. But here, your green light's going to go on, and then the mayor knows that you want to comment. And each of you know, if 2 or 3 lights are on, then obviously multiple of you wants to do it. We'll have to kind of move a little slower here in the beginning. And again, remember, red means go, green means stop. Does that make any sense? Just think of opposite of a traffic signal, but red means go, green means you're not ready. You're cued in, ready to go. And you can always turn off on again until he lets you speak. Questions or thoughts? What we want to do tonight, the reason we put it in here tonight too, it's a work session, what we're about ready to go into. Thought some of you have questions. No better time than do it at a workshop. It's not a formal council meeting that we're taking actions on anything. So we just thought, hey, let's do it tonight and get you all a little bit accustomed to it. So with that,
And we are gonna be following rules of order too, so if you hit your light and it's not time yet for you to talk, I'll see it whenever we go to the open part of it. Good? Seth, do you have any song and dance? All right. Our guy, IT guy over there. All right, we are ready for for item number 2, budget workshop.
good job, Mayor. So, Mayor, members, City Council, I just find it a little awkward to stand over there or sit over there and speak to you down the aisleway. So I would prefer that speaking from here. So we're off of the training session now and on to the work session. City Council on Thursday night of last week spent 3.5-4 hours going through what we'll call work session number 1 on the proposed 2025-2026 budget. Lots of good questions were asked during that meeting. You were given a whole lot of information, and as a council requested to come back because there were still some things and you hadn't had that much time to actually look at the budget. So we said, hey, let's come back. Let's try to address a couple of things that had lots of questions on them. There were just a few things. And then certainly any other questions that you might have that we can answer for you. And so with that, I'm going to go through a very short presentation this time. And then just so everybody knows, we went through the entire budget on Thursday. So this will just be a little snippet of that. And then the public hearing, which is set for September 7th, which is the first reading. Then I will do a more thorough, and it won't be anything like we did in the work session. That was lengthy and very thorough. It'll be abbreviated presentation by me so that certainly the public understands it during the public meeting. But for tonight, we're going to kind of zoom in on what the questions were and try to answer those. So the first slide here, so we had, see, I put this on, and Kevin Carter, the new EDC director that's with us, he's like, do I have to stay? So that was just a question that came up. It said didn't have line items, and we didn't. We just categorized them, and so we sent all that to City Council. Consolidate line items, I think we sent that to you. There's payment information that was asked for in regards to water and sewer from TriSud and Pilgrims. We don't have that for you yet. We're working on one of the two yet, but we'll get that to you as soon as we get that put together. And then a big conversation, a lot of conversation about the compensation plan, information and further discussion. So we're going to take a look. We're going to review the current comp plan, further discussion on proposed budget compensation increase, and then any questions that you have. So I'll go to the next slide. Again, here's the quick schedule for things. August 13, the proposed budget gets posted. So it's actually prior to, it's got to be posted by Friday. And so we'll be posting that on Friday. Then September 2 is the first public hearing. September 16 is the second, at which time we will hopefully have the City Council adopt the budget and the tax rate at that point in time. And the deadline, state law, is for the budget to be adopted by the end of September. So, Mayor and Council, I took a few slides because I felt like this would be a little bit awkward because people are watching now and they weren't watching Thursday. So I want to give just a few slides from that conversation. So, two biggest funds that we have are your general fund and your utilities fund. And so the 24-25, which is current budget, is 15.9. The proposed budget is 15.8, slightly less than what it was the prior year, but again, about the same. I think that just to remind everybody that there was a lot of work done in last year's budget because we were having some very, very difficult financial times and situations, our reserves were way down low, and so there were 15 positions eliminated, most last year, but some were actually done this year. And then staff was able to go back through and make a lot of reductions last year. Just to highlight that I think, to me, and I was actually looking through Moody's today and looking through the water study that you had that established the rates, and both of them indicate that your reserves was a big issue. Like Moody's said, you know, at that point in time, they were looking at the 2023 audit and said you were at 10%, and said that was one of the reasons they did the second reduction in your bond rating. But one of the big keys to that is getting it to them to consider moving it back up, is these reserves right here. And they're looking at 20 to 25%. And so you were at 6.8. We made some decisions last year during the budget process, up to 19% in 23-24, and the council policy is 16.67. So you are at now your council policy, and we don't have to worry about trying to take our annual money to backfill that particular reserve fund. So you're where you should be. It's where your policy calls out. And so some people would say we're not very stable, but that to me is what your rating agencies and your fiscal health looks at, is that you've got that money available to you. And I would say you balance the budget. In other words, revenues are the same as your expenditure. Next slide. Utility, these are the highlights again. So current budget's 18.8, proposed budget's 19.1, slightly higher. But utilities has brought in a lot more revenue. So a couple things that they're able to do is, we leased all vehicles in the city, and I think those lease payments when the city first started were probably a good deal for the city, but that has changed. Lease rates have changed, and now it's not, and so we're looking at replacing our fleet over time. But from this budget that's proposed, we'll be able to buy all of the fleet vehicles, and so there'll be no more lease payments. So, for instance, your lease payments that are a couple $100,000 a year from to the leasing company, and it may take $400,000 to $500,000 to actually replace the fleet, but you'll have no more of the $200,000 a year annual payment towards leases. The budget also establishes a replacement fund of $500,000, and the recommendation is that a master plan for water be done. A lot of it has to do for our own city, for the good of our city, but also our relationships and our working with TriSud, because we serve them water. And so we really have to get a good handle on how our connection points, their growth, our growth, all those things tie together. And so doing a master plan, looking at water and really evaluating that, should help all of us better understand what's the best path forward. And then at the end there, we're talking about revenues at $20 million, estimated that they'll have a surplus at the end of $1.2 million. So we're going to add those back into utilities. So if you look at the water rate study, one of the reasons they called for you to raise the rates 3 years ago was that your reserves were so far down. In order to bring them up again, they needed to be at least in the 20% range, and this would increase it to 22.7. Next slide. General fund. Again, here's just a quick snapshot of all the revenues that the city brings in. And you can see proposed is $15,817,200. Next slide. Here's your expenses at $15,809. Again, slightly less than what you see from the 2025, and a whopping $7,877 of surplus in there. But bottom line to it is balanced, and it has not been balanced in several years when it came to the audit findings that expenditures were exceeding revenues, unfortunately, for several years. Next slide. So some people a little more visual, so we look at what do you pay for out of the general fund. The police is the largest fund. It's in the blue. You see fire. You see other general government. That's like where everything gets put together. Insurance, finance, all of the different departments, and then a lot of the costs associated with the entire general fund or general part of the city. You see parks, development services is planning, building and fleet, library, municipal court. Those are all general fund, tax funded operations. Next slide. Now I think it's good just to list CIP. These are things that we're going to be purchasing. Again, a bond was was generated for most of these a couple years ago. Actually 2024 or early 2024. The ladder truck has actually been ordered already, but we're talking 2027 before we get delivery. Fire station roof will be done this year, I'm sure. Training facility for fire. Street rehabilitation, $2 million were set aside for that. Budgeting, we're budgeting $1 million of that to be used for street rehab this year. Civic center improvements, we actually have done those, so we are looking at some improvements there. We got some old air conditioning units. That's something we'll have to discuss, you as a council have to discuss how you want to go forward with that. Park improvements, that's Delwood Park, and those designs have now been pretty much agreed with. Garrett's done a great job with it, and he's going to be bringing forward now the proposals to actually go out and get bids so we can start to work on that here in a few months. And then airport was enough to match a grant, and he already received that, but like to put money in his budget under this particular area so that if he gets another grant, it's usually a 90-10 match, so you can use that $100,000 to match 90% grant. Next slide. This is the conversation I made just a minute ago. This is where the reserves were. We could actually put 9/30/24 on there, but this was from the old slides. You can see the line that the council policy is the black line. That was achieved on 9/30/2024, and you can see where we project the end of the year, and it's basically we're projecting the same out of this budget that we will stay up there above the city council policy for reserve. Next slide. Utility fund. So this is your revenue and expenditures. You can see on the far right, you've got the revenue at $20,400,000. Below is the expenditures at 19. And here's where you talk about the 1.2 million at the end of it, which is surplus that will go, it just automatically goes into your reserve account, and that will bring you up into the 20 plus range, where it's basically the industry standards is that you're going to show up over between 20 and 25%, because if something goes wrong in utility fund, it's usually a much bigger cost than what you'll see in the general fund. Next slide. And we just talked about those, the water master plan, vehicle replacement, the capital remaining, and we talked about the $1.2 million. That will bring your reserve up to 4.3 million. And I wanted to just double exclamation point the fact that you are now meeting your industry standards when it comes to utility fund. And here is their fund balance. You know, typically what you're going to see, because we did a capital, we're doing a capital replacement fund, you will want to build those funds up. So you will likely see that fund balance each year should continue rising until you expend it. And the work session, we talked about multiple projects. So for instance, there's a Tankersley, let's say, or the raw water line. Those projects, then you're going to build up those revenues in there, or those monies, and then you'll buy it down. Then you'll go back down, but it never go below that black line. Just stay there, because that's to support your operating issues as well. Next slide. CIP, if you haven't seen us around town, there's a lot going on. The treatment plant, the West Loop's still going on. The lift station's pretty much been done. The generators, we actually had those budgeted, so there'll be a conversation council has. We got grants for those, so that was great. Water treatment, both of those generators, and then there's some $6 million was put in the bond for the Lake Bob Sandlin water treatment plant. It wasn't pumping to capacity, and that was a problem from the design from the very beginning. And we were able to work last year, council and staff, to get the engineering company to actually pay for the new pumps, and I think they should be really close to getting ready to be installed. And so that $6 million is not going to be expended for the water treatment plant. And it's got the John Deere reroute, what a way to call that. That's a sewer main that we have in the back of the John Deere tractor place. It's right on the creek there, on the ditch there, and that's all eroding away, and it's jeopardizing the integrity of our line. So we're rerouting that away from the creek. And then there's the I-30 filter, which you'll have to discuss again whether it's something that's necessary to actually do or not. Next slide. Okay, so that's the quickest briefing I can do on those two accounts. So one of the major questions, and council members, you can stop me at any time. At least you can hit your green button and
So I wanted to ask you before we got into compensation, I made a note that you said that, according to Moody, that if we can hit, I want you to rephrase that, if we hit 25%, there was a benefit. Is that what you were saying, that we should try to?
I would, so Moody's in there, so Moody's, when they did the downgrade, they tell you, here's something, here's what you can do for us to reconsider this. Now, they do have it at 25%, but they have it, it's citywide, it's all funds. And so I think that's something that should certainly be looked at, but I don't think you should jeopardize it. I think that where you are right now, if I were staying here, I would go back and tell them, here's where we are, can you reconsider it, and make them tell you what you have, where you are today. I can tell you because what they're gonna look at is your last audit. And your last audit does not have your utilities up that high. It does have the general fund up that high, but you won't meet their criteria yet. At the end of next year, I would say you're pretty likely to be, you should request a reevaluation of that, because you dropped into the B categories this past year when those balances were there, and those are big. For instance, the street balance actually showed I think it was $300,000 negative balance, so that is charged against. So even if you made it here, those get charged against. So that's been eliminated too. So you're much closer. I would say at the end of next year, when you show those surpluses in there, that would be a good time to go back. Okay, so the council had a lot of questions here, and so I just want to go through a couple slides. So first of all, proposed budget does include a 3% market adjustment and a step increase for employees or below step 10 on the compensation plan, but also they have to be doing a satisfactory job as well. And then we had a conversation about, hey, what if we just gave everybody the same amount, $1,000 across the board? And I think it was instead of the 3% market adjustment is what we're looking at. So we're gonna talk about both of those here, and I'm gonna, if I bore you, please hit your green button and say you can stop. So next slide. So I know you can't read this. I knew you couldn't. I had to actually get him. I'm glad that the former city manager left me a magnifying glass, because that's the only way I could see these. What I wanted to show you though is on the far, can you get the pointer on there? Can you point on the far left side? So there's letters of ranges going from A to B. There's 3 pages of them. And then so what you see is you go down, there's 10 different steps. So each year, so an employee typically, if they have very little experience or not much experience, they're gonna start at a step 1. And so what you're doing throughout the process of step increases is saying, you've accomplished, you've performed at a satisfactory level, you're now got a year under your belt, you should be more efficient, you should be more effective, you're gonna move to step 2. And then each year, that step increase is available to employees, assuming they now have a satisfactory performance evaluation. And I think the question came up is, well, is it automatic? And is not automatic. Nothing's automatic here in salary increases unless the council votes in the amount of money necessary to be able to do that. So then on the very far right side, you green that? Whatever is behind me there. So that's all the different positions that the city has. They fall into each of these ranges. Basically, the lowest range is gonna start at the lowest paid employee and who has the lowest responsibility. So what you do is look at 2 things when you put people in ranges. First is, where are they in the market? Looking outside, looking what other people pay for the same types of positions. And we're gonna use the police department here tonight a little bit to kind of show how that all works. But all throughout, all the positions fall in here except for the directors and the city manager are not in the pay range. And so everybody shows up in a range here. If you hit the top range, so the far right is number 10, so basically you've been here for 10 years, you will be capped out. So that says in the market that you've looked at both outside and inside, this is where the range is, and this would be basically the top of the range that other people are offering for the same job. Okay, so, can you go to the next slide? So when they do the ranges, when they set those up, they look at all your job descriptions. They look at, then they do an outside survey. They pick cities that you will make the decision when they do the comp plan here, starting in a few months. You'll pick the cities you compare to. They'll go out based on the job descriptions that we have for these positions. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with the person in the range or in the position. It is simply the title and the job description. What are their responsibilities? What's their authority requirements? And I think something that's important that people sometimes forget is what happens if they don't do their job well. So I'll just use 2 examples. The parks guy who's out mowing the parks, if he skips part of it and doesn't mow it, doesn't matter. If a police officer or even a firefighter doesn't do their job well, there's lives on the line, there's liability on the line, there's a lot of things that if those people aren't doing their jobs well, there's a liability potential to the city. So that's even looked at. And so all of those things are looked at, not just, hey, this person does this or that. You're looking at a number of things. Then they'll give you all of those ranges. They'll give you titles in there. It comes back. City council takes a good hard look at it. I suggest the employees are going to be wanting to take a look at it and get their input on it. And so you'll bring that back. And then again, so the steps, we talked about that. And really each step is to say, hey, you're a year more experienced each year that you go up the ladder. So you've got people here that are, there's 40 some people that are at step 10 right now. And so they've put 10 years, they got 10 years of experience here. And I think a lot of those are in the a number of them are in the public safety world. We've got very experienced people here doing their job, which I will say as a city manager is very good to know because they know how to do their jobs. So then again, the 3% market adjustment, what that does is it takes that whole big thing you looked at and it all moves it up 3%. So that bottom line is your step 1 of all ranges goes up and all of them go up the same. And so now when you look at your market, you're gonna see that it's 3% higher. And we'll show you a slide in just a minute what that actually looks like. And then again, it's about a 3%, and we've just started doing evaluations, and if you don't get a satisfactory evaluation, you will not get a step increase. Next slide. So here's, I wanted to kind of show you what it looks like, because one of the conversations we had is we're behind. If you're behind in the market, the 3% market adjustments, I was calling it COLA, but it's probably better to call it a market adjustment, moves that number up. So I'm using a police officer, which is $55,000. I guess you're looking, I'm pointing at this slide, you're looking at that one. So a police officer is at $55,000, that's their base salary. So that 3% will increase, that's $1,650. The new base is $57,150. So I'm showing you current, I'm showing you the 2026 if you did the 3% on the market adjustment. Now, we made a couple inquiries to say everybody else is doing their budget, so what is everybody else doing? Because if we, say this, if we did 0 and Sulphur Springs did 5, you're 5% behind, right there. And so as you can see, what happens with Sulphur Springs is even if you look at the 2026, their 5 is going to even make that gap a little bit wider. And you see Paris, we're here, they said 3%, and Greenville's 5%. So those are adjustments that usually are across the board for all employees. And I picked probably, which I don't know this for sure, but I do know that the police are probably the worst. So this is probably the worst scenario of a gap between what the base is and what you're seeing out there in the competitive side for the salary compensation survey. And so all I really want to say is when somebody says they're getting that increase, well, I'm going to look at this and say if you did 0, they'd stay at 55. Sulphur Springs is going to go up to 66 from 63. Paris is going to go up. Greenville's going up. That increases your gap even more. So when you have the salary compensation study that will come in to you probably late spring next year, your gap's gonna get bigger if you didn't do it. And so I don't know if that makes sense. And then Mount Pleasant, I did it on the end here. So then we did hear that obviously recommending the step increase, but also Paris is talking about a merit increase. And so these are the information we just got, and I just wanted to show you that this happens all the time. And so when we do the study, we're actually waiting until all these budgets are adopted before you start the comp study, so you can see what's everybody else doing. So you're going to get a comp study that is up to date. It's not, if you would have done it right before the budget here, you wouldn't have seen what this is. Now you're going to get it, and you're going to be able to see it all. So I put that all employees receive a $1,000 increase. That's not supposed to be on that slide, so I can't remove that. So let's take the next one. So I wanted to explain, because understandably, you talk about $1,000 because everybody's paying more for groceries. I get the highest salary in the city. That gallon of milk or that fruit or whatever it is the same cost for me as it is for the person in the lowest grade range of the city, without a doubt. But what I was trying to say is that the issue I would have with that is if you tried to integrate that into the pay plan. And so what I did here is I took three, so if you look, remember we were A through V. We've got all sorts of ranges. So I just jumped in and took some of those. So at C1, which is going to be your lower paid employees, 37,398 step 1, step 2 is 38,520. So you do 1,000, here's your new number. The difference of that is they're $122 away from step 2. So they haven't moved all the way to step 2, but they're 89% the way through step 2. So then if I take H1, which is going to be a little more in the middle, a little bit lower than middle, you can see there's step 1, step 2, here's what the $1,000 would do. Now it's $430. This particular gray range right here would now be 70% through step 1. And then if I go to M1, which is again a higher paid, as you can see, now you're going, and you see the numbers, 828 difference. This particular individuals or employees in this area are only going to go 55% into the step. And so if you do that, I put on here, it disrupts the continuity of it. So what do you do next year? You say you get whatever it took to get to step 2 plus step 3, you do 1,000. So the only reason I bring that up to you is I don't think it works as long as you want to stick with the compensation plan. My recommendation or suggestion is if you do want to relook at how you do that comp study is a great time to say, you know what, this step and range thing doesn't work for us, and come up with something different. One of the council members said, well, police and fire are different. I said, that's a great time to talk hybrids if that's what you want to do. The comp plan to me is the best time to look and say, okay, we want to do this different. So I would say if you wanted to do the $1,000, you do it outside of the salary pay plan. You don't include it as a salary increase. Otherwise, the whole step plan falls apart because you got people falling in all sorts of different places throughout that step plan, and at some point in time, if you want to use it anymore. And so that, I wanted to just show that. That's what I was trying to kind of say, that it just takes the integrity away of the way it works, and because you're paying a flat amount. It's based on 3% per step is what each of those step increases is across the board. It's 3%.
Thank you. Councilman Corbell, that's quick.
Okay, here's my problem with it, and I've already stated it. The difference is that we're looking at employees making 40, 60, I think that's 37, I can't tell what, 37,000. My biggest problem comes into when we have people that are in the 80, 90, and 100,000, 120, 126, or 44,000, because their 3% is so much greater than the guys down here making that $40,000, $50,000 a year. That's where my big problem comes in. And if we have a step plan that needs to be altered, even if we have to move every step up at the end of the year by $1,000 or whatever we agreed upon, then we move it up. I mean, we just go into the computer, we change the numbers and move everyone up from their salary now to 1,000 next year and 1,000 each year until we figure it out. But that's my biggest concern, is that the people at the top keep getting all the money. And the guy down here who's getting a $1,500 a month raise, and the people up here who are getting $3,000 a month or a year raise, in year 2, they're getting $6,000. If they get 6% this year, some of them are getting a $6,000 raise. I worry about where our city is going to be in the next 2 or 3 years with our salaries increasing like we have said it. And then the fact that you add on top of that, that a lot of the guys who were maxed out this year that did not get a step were going on and saying, nobody got a raise, or I didn't get any money. So it's kind of like, you know, you cut your throat either way. People aren't going to be happy, but I have a real problem with the way our salaries are going, and with the 3,000 or 4,000 compared to, if you call it a market audit, this guy pays $500 for his week of groceries. This guy up here pays the same amount. That's my problem with it, and I still have the same problem with it.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. So, the people that are starting salary at 37, 47, 60, and are doing the steps, those are not directors, right? So the people, just from my brief looking at it, the people who are making salaries in our city that are really making like the 90, the 100 over, that multiplier, those more or less are directors, and they are on a different thing.
So well,
Are you okay, Greg? I think until we get that salary study, we're gonna, I just want to keep it fair. And I'm definitely glad that you're saying market adjustment, because it's not for a COLA, it's actually market adjustment to keep people here. Right now, we don't have the information to know whether we're even at market value right now.
But what we are going to find out is, we're already talking about, as we did last week, and I got hit with it the next morning at the gym, y'all are going to raise our taxes. We've got to remember that we're fixing to looking at raising taxes, and it's going to be real hard for us to justify giving a 6% increase plus the $10 in longevity that's figured into this, because it's all figured in together in here. We're going to have a really hard time justifying going out and raising the tax rate from a $123,000 home, $108 a year. When you look at what the cost of some of the houses are around here, we're going to have a real problem with this.
Well, I think something you can point to is our budget from this year to last year is what, $900,000 less than what it was, something like that, less. And then also, as far as our property taxes and everything are concerned, is that we're like second lowest on the whole scale of it. So at least that you can point to it. It's basically keeping up with everybody else around it. Greg?
just a couple things. So I do want to try to address a couple things. So first of all, if you go through and you all, I think, receive how much our payroll has changed from last year to this year, which it's down, it's less. So with these raises, you're actually going to see less in payroll. And I understand your comments about, it's going to keep increasing. Well, I think if you look at what every other city's doing, that's right, and they're all based on percentages as well. So the percentage side is a it's the most common. In fact, it's rare that you would see a flat amount given. It's up to the city council if you want to choose to do something differently on that particular area. I would also say that as I look at an entire organization, which I've done for a long time, is you have different levels of responsibility from the lowest paid person to the highest. I have a very high level of responsibility here. Literally life and death situations are on my shoulders. If there's an emergency here, if you watched Kerrville, that city manager's sitting in the hot seat with the mayor. So you actually have a responsibility as emergency management guy as does each fire chief, police chief, each director has higher levels of responsibilities. The foremen at the water treatment plants or wastewater treatment plants have a higher responsibility than anyone else. So I do understand the flat. It's actually a compelling argument. But on the other hand, you do want to retain everybody. And so what's very standard in the industry is that you're going to look at these percentage increases, not on flat across the board. And that'll be a decision you make. I think this has the most to do with retention. And I told somebody this today, is this organization is retained pretty well so far. But if you don't do things to try to keep up with the market, then you're going to fall behind and people will start leaving you, and then you're going to go into the training process and so forth. I will tell you, of the directors, almost all of the new directors have been hired. Finance, HR, Public Works, Utilities, those are brand new to that job. And so they started, and I do have ranges for them, they're just not in the comp plan. They started at the lowest level of the range. And so you want to be competitive. We were not finding people who wanted to transfer and move over here that had years of experience that we thought could fit. So it's grow your own. But you have a lot of very experienced people here that make this city run. And it runs very well. I'm just going to tell you that. And I know, last year we did not give the market adjustment. Why didn't we? Because we didn't feel like we could afford it with the way the budget was, and so we did not give it. The council will vote every single year whether they do or don't want to do that. And honestly, I looked at it, and with the payroll actually showing up less than what it was the year before, and the budget balanced, I thought that if you don't do that 3% across the board, which is what those other agencies are doing, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a director, whether you're somebody in parks, they're going up X percentage. And that's how the pay plans work. And so to me, it's your decision, and understand completely Councilmember Corbell's position on that and thinking on that. But I will tell you, it's not common to do it that way, and you are behind in some. You are at market in some. Your market study will show you that some positions do not need to be adjusted. So at that point in time, it's like if you're already at market, you don't need to do the market adjustment for certain positions throughout the city. And so I think you'll see that you probably have, I'm going to guess you probably maybe even have half the positions aren't going to need another one. But if other cities are given 3% market adjustments as a minimum, you're going to be 3% behind when you do your comp study if you do nothing.
Well, we are looking at the 3% for these step plans, which would give them a 3%. And, I just, knowing that we're looking to raise taxes, I have a really, really hard time. And I see that we also have the $10 in longevity again. And I knew we had discussed that last year. It's rolled into your payroll numbers. All of it is. It's in there. But even if we did a 1%, or something 1.5%, I would feel better about that. But in this day and time, in this city, with all we've been through, I just cannot support. Since I know we're going to look at a tax raise, I just don't think it's fair to the citizens.
We talked about this in the work session. A tax increase is a tax increase, but I don't think that it should be seen as a tax increase because of this payroll. The majority of that tax revenue is being caused by the fact that the city borrowed money and the debt service payment is now due, and you have to pay that first. And so if you didn't raise taxes, you would have to cut $1.3 million or $1.5 million out of what you see right up here. And so I think that I just want to make sure it's totally transparent and open. I think probably 400,000, I'm thinking, of the tax increase actually goes for O&M. You remember? Well, it's something in that neighborhood. I can pull up the old slide, but we went through that. I will be going through that again during the public hearing and showing that even with that tax increase, you're at second to the bottom above Tyler today, with the existing tax rate, with 25 or so cities above you, the Kilgores, the Longviews, the Sulphur Springs, all of those, a lot of those different cities, Paris is in there, that even after the tax increase, you remain second from the bottom. So basically, you see a lot of people at the 0.5 rate. Some are at 0.4. Yours will be 0.41, 0.43. You can just 0.41, which is still keeps you at the bottom, near the bottom. So again, I understand completely. We've been through a lot here. There's no doubt. We went through a lot last year trying to get us back to a balanced budget, one that with reserves in it, again, where you're supposed to be. So completely understand that, Councilmember Thorpe.
Sorry. I wanted to just make a comment, so hold your thought, and I'll hold mine. Over the weekend, I went back and looked at the proposed tax rate that we'd be going up and how we're the second from the bottom, and I looked at some of these cities that are ahead of us, like Winsboro at 0.58, Clarksville, who is at 0.67, Commerce, who is at 0.798. So I looked at some of these smaller towns. I mean, some are larger. But I started going, and of course, Google is always right. But I went the Google route to ask what the median average home they have there. And for example, Clarksville is at 82,000 is their average home. Ours is about 209 to 225. So as I studied this and went through some of these towns, what I realized, it's actually the value of our homes, which, and I would love for people to explain to me how we can get around that. I mean, obviously our realtors and people are spending, money for these houses, and we've had a lot of people move into town that were from out of state or whatever they were able to have and pay cash. But I think that actually starts in Austin. That a value of our home per square foot starts in Austin, which is given then to our appraisal district. And correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Councilman Corbell?
I was showing her the tax rate on up here for our median income for the cost of the home.
Go ahead, Greg.
So, council member, I appreciate you all having conversations and sending questions in, because it helps us look for things before we walk in this room. So we Googled it, and Candace and I were talking about it, and it said the Mount Pleasant area, it's 220. But area means something different than city limits. So then we specifically went into within the city limits. It's not 80, but it's 160. So we used 154 or something in that neighborhood to show what the median house income. So that's again why you make a great point. I mean, the higher your values are, you should be able to have a less of a tax rate when you have that. The lower your values are, the higher your tax rate should be to collect the same amount of money. That makes just simple math. But we did take a look at that, because at 220, I kept thinking that must include some of the more expensive homes that are out on the lake and so forth. Because I drive around, I've driven around this town a lot, and it's like, well, there are nice homes. There's plenty of homes that are above that value, but there's a lot of homes that I would say are below that value.
And I do agree, because where I kept going back and looking, and again, trying to look at Google, Mount Vernon was showing that the average home was $300,000. And so I'm like, well, that's got to be lake. I mean, because it's the lake. And so I'm wondering how much of the lake affects us, which is Titus County. So, that's where people were asking me about the tax increase, and I this weekend and told people that we're showing down here that we're number 2 from the bottom. Tyler is underneath us. So I'm trying to make sense of all of this. And
so I just have a couple more slides. And by the way, because council members, you've been asking about longevity, and we had quite the conversation last year about longevity. I wanted to be transparent and put it up on the board so that you can see that. And so it is another part of compensation. It's not rolled into anybody's salary, but I think I think there's just two quick, well, let me go through these last two slides. So I do want to just say, as far as recommendation, that I would, and it's in the proposed budget, is that the 3 market adjustment for all employees to keep pace with the other cities for retention. No market increase was given in the employees last year. The last one was in October of 2023. The step increase is again after evaluations are conducted. No one above a step 10 gets those, and then I always look at those as each year of experience you're going to get a step increase to say you're more experienced, you should be more efficient in doing your job, and obviously we want to retain good people. And then I just put a note on 45 to 50 employees got no salary increases last year. Next slide then. So then I just wanted to quickly talk about that study because I think it's part of the, I do believe it's part of the conversation, but again, you're going to make that decision. So should be completed by March or April of next year. The last compensation study done, the last market adjustment study was done in over 5 years ago. And it'll give you information when you consider market adjustments for next year's budget. It will show which positions are under market, at market, over market. You can provide then targeted budget adjustments for positions that are under market. You know, if some position comes in at 20% under the market, you don't have to give, you should be trying to look at how do we get to that, but you certainly don't need to make those adjustments. If you're over there, typically, I mean, I've had a lot of these done for me as city manager. If it's over, you're just going to basically freeze that person. They won't get that market adjustment anymore until their range catches up to them. And then you can do it part of the budget process because that's where you can look at where you're going to get the money from. So I think that's the question that's raised here. I put it right here. Most importantly is, are the adequate funds available? And that those are only approved annually by the city council, so that you have the ability to look at what your expenses are each year and say, you know what, we can't afford it this year like we did last year, and you're going to have to look at that each year. Next, so that's my last slide there. So we're just hit longevity pay. Someone shared this with me. I thought, you know, this really is a very good statement. Is for government employees. Additional compensation provided employees based on their years of service. It's a way to reward long-term commitment, loyalty, recognize employees have dedicated a significant portion of their careers to a government agency. And here's the slide. Oh, it went flat. Uh-oh. We had the dollar amounts here. So we can't get the slide up there. Let me see if it's, oh yeah. So in your packet, the very last slide, you can see that, so the longevity pay has been here for quite some time. It's been $10 per month for your service, up to 25, and it's the $10 that's in the budget is $197,000. That's citywide. If you were to make a decision to lower it to $7, it's $138, and if you were to go down to $5, it's $98, about $100,000. One of the things we did is we looked at a resolution that was adopted last year, and basically the resolution said the range for longevity is going to be between $5 and $10 per month is what the city council discussed at that point in time. So this is again completely up to the city council and for how you want to set this. Again, it's been $10 the last couple of years. I think it's been as low as, it's been less than that in the past. It's been down to 4. It was 4 before, and it wasn't that many years ago that it was 4. So with that, I'll be quiet.
So, again, this was me, you know, on the internet, and I think they probably have a heads up that I was looking at it. I would like for you guys to show me where other cities are doing 10. So what I found, this is just what I found. City of Longview is doing $4. Paris is doing $4. I'm looking back. He's nodding. Texarkana is at 5. Tyler is at 4. Pittsburgh and Bonham were kind of all over. I mean, they have an interesting way of doing it. Gilmer is at 10, but it's only on their 10th anniversary. And then they increased to $20 a month on their 18th anniversary. Bonham is 20 per month, but the max they can go to is like 420. Sulphur Springs is 20 a month after having served 2 years. Sulphur Springs is 20 a month. Oh, I just read that. I'm sorry. Greenville is 6 a month between the first and the 10th year. 8 after that. 10 per month after 20. Kilgore's at 4. Mount Vernon, Jacksonville, Athens, Henderson, and New Boston are at 20 per month for every 2 years. And so read it. So it does come. So anyway, I was just saying this is what I've been studying to try to see what is comparable. And so I would like, I know that when this happened a couple of years ago, I just kind of would like to know where that figure came from and what we could do.
Well, the figure came from Ed Thatcher when he was here, and they did it without council approval, but it went from $4 to 10, and as I remember, they were actually giving it for unlimited number of years, which state law, I believe, says 25 is where you're capped. But I believe they were doing it for unlimited. Wasn't that right, Candace? They were doing it for over 25 years for employees that had over 25 years. Yeah. And it was all done without council approval or out to the public.
So I do not know the history here of this one. I do know that we all jumped into it last year, head, toes, shoulders, knees, and everything. I'm going to say this to you, is if you're looking at trying to reduce this, it makes for a pretty big compensation package when you look at it all. And if you're going to look at something, I would suggest this, because this is just one-time funding. If you're going to look at doing any reductions, I just want to recommend pretty strongly to you that you do the market adjustment, so that you, otherwise you're going to find out next year you're 3% behind, even further than you are in some positions than you are now. And so if there is something that the city council says, it's a pretty good package, or you're talking to your folks about tax increases and so forth, I'm sure some people aren't going to like what I have to say today, but I'm here to work for you all. And I would say if you feel that that's something that you are feeling the package is more than you feel comfortable approving, this would be the area I would suggest that you take a look at for reducing. And I do think there's a very good question here that you're asking, and that is, what are other people doing? I think we do need to go do that for you. Kind of like I just pulled up the police officers. I have not looked at what other people are doing, so I think that's a great question, and that's what we can provide that to you. We'll have to post the budget. We'll post the budget, but it doesn't mean the budget can't change. So, it's just saying, here's what city manager recommended budget is. It's not your budget until you adopt that. And so we'll publish it, because we have to do it by Friday, but we'll also bring back or send to you information on what we find out. We'll do a little survey on what are other people paying for longevity.
Well, I was just gonna say, as an elected official, with everything being set up the way that it is, right? We're under budget, all of our tax and everything else, and I don't even get to vote on it. So I get to be the lucky guy to say, what it is. I don't see any problem with what's going on here, and even explaining to people. And I think the big part for us right now is we don't have that salary compensation study. If we had that to point to on this year, then we could point to market value needs to go down here, market value needs to go up here. But right now we don't have that to point to. We'll be in a better position next year to be able to do that. So.
Right. Now, I was just going to say, I trust Candace's computer and her network of city secretaries, because she's always able to get us better data than Google.
Which is where we got the numbers from those cities, as she's in communications with her city secretaries who are helping provide that.
Is it working? Yes, okay. Well, there's no easy answer to this tonight, is there? We've got to be fair to our taxpayers and to our employees. We have a great fire department and a great police force. Can't afford to lose any of those guys. And the city runs well, just like you said. And Deb, I understand where you're going with it. But like you said, next year, if we can't afford it, we don't do a step. This year, it looks like in your budget, we can afford it. We need to do what we can do to keep the people we have, because it's running well. And if we have to train new people, it's going to cost a lot more money. Is that correct?
It is very costly to train and have experienced police and firefighters. I mean, I think even sometimes you think about utility workers, right? We usually go to police and fire, but your utility workers in the plants, they have to be certified to do that. There's years of schooling and so forth. And so, for instance, when you see somebody at a higher pay scale, it's going to be that person that you've got certified. And you don't want to lose them. And that's probably, I would say, one of the hottest areas for people to be moving right now is in those utility certified areas, because there's not that many of them. But I think you're going to see it across the board. It's hard for me, so I will just say, when I put this budget together, it was looking at the 3%, and that's it. And so we went as a staff, we worked together really hard to do two things. One is, can we do this? And the payroll is no higher than last year's budget, which the reductions that we made. And it's not. Across the board, it's not, even with these increases. And then a balanced budget is what I hope that this council will forever look for, and realistic estimates on the revenues, because it wasn't necessarily a budget issue. People spent what they thought the revenues were going to be coming in. That was significantly off. And I'll be the first to say, for the year we're in right now, my projections on sales tax was $500,000 higher than what it's coming in to be. However, there's reductions on the payroll side of probably around 600,000 there, and other places that it's been reduced. So we do anticipate something right near even, or even I hope by the time you get an audit, there might be a little surplus even after that. So that's the reason we do monthly reports, why you required that, why you said give us the monthly reports, is to say, listen, watch it, and ask those questions. You've been doing a good job as a council asking those questions. And so I think that it's just the way it's supposed to be. You never can predict. It's like utilities. You don't know. If you have a rainy year, like this was actually a little wetter year, people didn't turn their sprinklers on as much, they didn't use as much, so our revenue numbers are going to be slightly down. If it's a super dry year, they're going to be higher. So those are just going to change. Sales tax will change. Property tax doesn't change very much. It stays pretty well. Once the value is established, it stays right there.
Thanks for pointing out. I didn't mean to discredit utility or parks guys in my statement. It takes everyone to make it go round, and I think everyone should be rewarded. We shouldn't just work on police or fire. Everybody deserves fair treatment.
Okay. For the very things that you just voted out, and believe me, I've worked with police and fire, the guys at the water plant, the guys out at the landfill, out at the sewer plants. I mean, I've worked with those guys for years. I have great, great respect for all of them. But the very things that you just pointed out, our sales tax revenues are down. They've been down over and over. Every year we've been battling with our revenue is down. You just said it was down even 500,000 more than what you thought. Our landfill fees are down an awful lot too. Water sales are down. We're deep in debt. And yet we want to give increases, and yet we're sitting here saying that our revenue is down. Landfill fees are down. And the only way we can do this is if we raise taxes. So it's a really hard thing for me to balance, and I know it is for everyone up here. when we keep looking at the numbers where everything is going down, and then the only way, and then we're talking about maybe putting some money aside, we're $120 million in debt. If we have at least little bit of excess monies in our own budgets, we would put it aside to pay our bills off. It's just a really, really difficult thing for me to balance the negatives that we have to face in actual numbers, and the only way we achieve anything is to raise taxes, and everything is just, all the revenue is down, and I just, it's gonna be really, really hard for me to justify this with what we're looking to do based on raising taxes and not putting anything I mean, I'm sure we're putting something aside somewhere, but when you look at all the fees that are down, when I look at what is possible with the fire contract, where we're going with that, when I hear what's TriSud, these are all things that have me absolutely terrified as to what we're going to do here, that we are not looking at the future, that we are okay right now, but where are we going to be in 2 or 3, 4, 5 years? That is my biggest concern with raising taxes, because if things keep going down, if they keep going in the negative, our sales revenue is down, if all of these things, landfill down, all of these things that are decreased, and I'm going to tell you, and I'm one of those people, I've already talked to my husband about going to zero landscaping because I don't want to pay the water bill anymore. So I'm really concerned about our future, and where are we preparing for the future?
So, she's talking about raising taxes, and I was trying to go through my paperwork. What we are, the city is proposing is to raise it what was the amount? Was it a penny? 2 pennies? Huh? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're not just gonna hand it to me.
I'm used to the button. Sorry. I'm gonna put my hands in my pockets now. So the current tax rate is 0.340414, and the proposed rate is 0.415929. So that's an increase of about 0.07. Yes, and that's it, almost entirely on the debt side of the rate, not on the M&O side. That'll be the difference. Yes, I believe so.
So I knew it would be less than a penny, basically, or the percent. I'm sorry, I always look at things as pennies. Okay, yeah, but 0.08. And then also, I had a conversation with some people discussing this, and I wanted to let them know that we're hoping that the water, it's looking like we won't be paying the additional $17 per bill. That would be going to a zero. So I'm trying to justify the difference between if we went up to the point, whatever, and saving the $17 per water bill, what that would do to the people of Memphis.
If we give the raises this year, it doesn't mean we have to honor them next year. If we have the money, great, let's do. Let's hope sales tax go. Let's hope Kevin Boyd brings some business in and we really get our tax rate going. I mean, lots of things can happen, and Mount Pleasant's looking up, I think. We've got people in place. So every year, it's a new look. And Debbie, I agree. I'm terrified too. I really am. But I'm very terrified if we lose our firemen and our police force and our guys over in utilities. If we lose a whole bunch of these guys, it's gonna cost us way more money to get other guys in.
Well, and I'll tell you, I would feel more comfortable with the study. Like I said, if we had the salary study to be able to point to go, we're overpaying, then we could justify and point to that a lot more clearly on being able to tell people the market. I mean, we'll be able to actually tell them. We'll have the study and show them. But right now, we don't have that, so, I mean, it's with everything in place and us not having that study, and still the payroll is gonna be lower this year than it was last year, I think it's pretty easy to show how it's justified, right? I mean, we're trying to keep our people and we're coming in, they've made a lot of changes and everything, so I wouldn't have any problems talking to anybody about any of the property tax and everything. I mean, it's y'all have done a great job. I mean, y'all have helped me understand it and at the peak. So I appreciate it.
And the only thing I would say to that, and I want to give raises across the board like we would like to do and such as that. I don't necessarily agree with the amounts, but if we could say that we have basically the same payroll as we did, and I know the guys, and I know everyone in here worked to cut their budgets, I know that. If it wasn't the fact that we are going to raise taxes to do that this year is my biggest concern.
We're not doing that to, go ahead, Greg.
So I think, I do want to remind the city council that, you weren't here, but we chose the no new revenue option for property tax last year, which meant there was no new revenue other than new buildings. So no one had any increase at all in their property tax last year. So if you want to call this a little bit of adjustment for that, you could say that. I think your normal costs in life are going to increase. Your utility bills are going to go up. Your supplies are going to go up. And, you know, I will say to you as a city manager, I'm always more comfortable and confident saying to my electeds and to my organization, I would rather pay for good employees and have fewer than pay for more employees and have not near the experience that you have. And it is a very, very hard way. How do you waiver tax dollars versus making sure you're going to retain that quality of employees that you have? And I can only say that you get some really good service here. I've been through a lot of not so good service areas and a lot of turnover areas. And you know, to all council members, I went through the Great Recession as a city manager. I had to cut 25% of my budget, which was over $20 million just in cuts. And so you're going to react to that, but you can't, I would say to you, is you shouldn't always look at the downside of things. I like to say that actually I think that this council should celebrate the fact of where you were at the end of not long ago, like less than 12 months ago. As a team, we made hard decisions last year. And we were able to bring back a budget that looks like what you're going to see next year is, or what you're going to see at the end of this year is balanced. Even though I had hoped sales tax would be at least the same as it was the year before it went down. I tried to show that in the presentation that we are showing it flattening. We are seeing from municipal services, which does this across the state and honestly across the country, they are showing a upward tick in their chart, which is one of the ways we base what our recommendation is. So we picked about 2%. It's still quite a bit less than what they're forecasting. We actually showed up in the pessimistic line where they're forecasting pessimistic, really bad, pessimistic, forecasted, and then optimistic, and so forth. We pick down at the pessimistic side just because we don't want you to get stuck in the same place that you were before. And nothing guarantees anything. Nothing guarantees that. I would just say, for me, I did say it when I was here last year when we walked through this budget, I said, my recommendation is going to be that these raises occur this year because you can't keep holding back your employees by saying no raises. And we did that last year for that market adjustment. Some people did not get any raises. And so I would rather retain, so we got rid of 15 positions last year. I'd rather retain the good that I have and pay a little more than try to get more employees and they're not as good and as experienced and so forth. So that's just my philosophical side. It doesn't have to deal with your side. I did recommend, and I'm sure council's gonna take it, that the utilities, after 2 big rate increases, to bring you back to what I call stable, because I think that is where you are, to a stable reserve amount of 4.3 million at the end of next year, that you not raise those rates this year. Suspend them. You can look at doing it next year. It was going to be a 5% increase. That you not do that because you're showing positive, very positive results from the rate increases. So stop, because you don't want everybody xeriscaping their yard and saying I'm not ever going to water my yard again because of the water rates. So same with taxes. You don't want to tax people out of their homes and out of their livelihoods. Understood. That's why it was very important when I met with staff on a number of occasions. It was, I can't do this, can't do both of these unless we figure out a way that this budget's balanced. And then when we actually looked at it, the payroll numbers from what we budgeted last year are actually less this year than what they were last year in across the city, across the board when it comes to utilities and general fund. That's why you're getting that recommendation. I believe that retaining is extremely important. And I also say that if you go into the other side of it, where you're on the low end of the pay scale and people start leaving, that's a very difficult part to recover from, because people already have said, you know what, I'm going to go somewhere else I can get a lot more pay. So we do want to retain, and I know you do too. I know you're not arguing that you don't want to retain. I clearly understand that. So I will say to you, because I thought about this kind of a lot, I decided I wasn't going to do it, but you should be celebrating the fact that we're sitting here and with reserves now above your policy, into the standards that you have. You have balanced budgets on both sides. That's where your city lies today. Yes, downturns could happen. You're going to have to adjust. Upward revenue streams, sales tax. Sales tax is not going to continue downward. It's back in the 2019 numbers is what we're seeing. So it's going to rebound. If not, Mount Pleasant will be in a tough situation for a while. I do believe it has such optimism here, and you're going to see that grow and grow. And so that's just from a city manager that's done this and gone through these budgets and gone through cuts of $1.5 million, $1.8 million here last year with the city council, that we brought it down. I always believe you reset it all the way. You don't weasel your way down to get to where you need to be. And that's what happened here last year. You brought it all the way down, and now you find yourself at reserves where they're supposed to be. And you have balanced budgets. Not easy. You're absolutely right. This is not a good time when it comes to the general fund, and it's a recovery time in utilities. But to me, you've hit a stable place. And now you just got to manage it. If revenues are down, you're going to have to cut. If revenues are up, you're going to have to be wise. Decide how best do you prioritize that for the betterment of this community and for the quality of life that you all want to keep giving them. And I will just say, just say from my heart, because I'm gone in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, or whatever, that you do have a very well experienced employees out there working in the field for you. They're very good at what they do. I have I call her my rookie. I'll just say it, because she never was a finance director, but she did an amazing job this year through the budget process. So Doesn't always mean that the most experienced are gonna be great. She did a great job. Is she a finance director of 10 years experience? She's not. She will learn, she will keep learning, and she will be outstanding in a few more years. And so when I look at a step increase, and I don't have steps yet here in this group, but there's a position I would want to give a step increase to because I want them to know I want to keep them. And I started her at the lowest part of the range in that first step area. And so that's just how the process works. And to me, retaining is very important. You do not want to get into I don't believe you want to get into a situation where you're not, retain the good, do what's necessary to do that, as long as you can balance your budgets. And, again, if I had to dissect the 400,000 plus that's going for O&M, which pays for all of that general fund budget, I bet you I could narrow it down to where not much of it actually would be paying for payroll, because we actually have it slightly less. It's other things that went up in expense, like utility costs and those type of things. So, I don't know. I'm not trying to badger you into any decision here. I respect you all a whole lot, but I thought, hey, I'm going to give you my philosophy and how I've looked at this, my second run at this budget, and you should be proud. This community should know one thing. You brought this thing, you turned this thing around. Let's just be straight up here. You turned it around. It was falling, failing. It was going down. Your general fund was, your utilities were, everything was going down, and arrested it, stopped it, made hard decisions, cut a lot. Yes, you had CARES funding saved you. Otherwise, we would probably not be talking about increases because we need to backfill those reserves back up. So you've got yourself in a stable place, and I think there's 3 green lights, so I need to be quiet.
So, Councilman Hinton?
I'm not sure who I was watching tonight or listening tonight, but we need people to shop in Mount Pleasant. Quit buying stuff on Google. Support our town by shopping local, and it makes these decisions tonight a little more easier.
What I'd like to do is agree with you on sales tax. So what I did is I've had a chance to go back and look at my sales. Now, of course, I'm a little flower shop, but where last year I suggested you cut it back 20%, and it wasn't enough. But what I'm seeing is it's leveling off just in this last month. Now, I was really worried about it in June. I was like, oh, this is bad. June, the 1st of July. But when I'm looking at what it is now and at the beginning of August, I'm going to agree with you that I think it's leveling off. And I think one statement that was made last year, and it was something I learned, and I was like, they're right. So we, I think, have gone through a delayed COVID situation in the fact that, and this is just Kelly's mind thinking from a small business perspective, fake money was generated during 2020. And so this fake money that was generated, in addition to money given out to people to spend, and of course then you've got that the variance of all these people getting $800 a week for unemployment, that generated capital for people to go and spend. It was not real money. And that delayed our COVID being closed, that delayed that situation for a couple of years. I believe that what has happened this last year with our thinking of the future, I think that's what we've gone through, and hopefully now we're catching up. And I agree with Carl, and one thing that I have also been talking to people about is we need to change our mindsets, and we need to think of how we can become a revenue earner. We need to think of tourism. We need to think of what we can do to get money, and instead of just saying, okay, people here in Mount Pleasant shop here. Yes, that's for sure. But we need to start bringing people in from the area around us to shop here, and we need to promote our town. We need to market our town. We need marketing so that people will come and spend their money here with us.
So, for Councilman Corbell, it sounds like we're going to need some sort of vote on the compensation stuff, I guess. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. tonight, the only thing that I would say is
Oh, yeah, not tonight.
if there's kind of a unanimous direction, because we're gonna post it, to do some changes to it, we're gonna publish it, as it is, and then obviously you're not gonna be adopting it. You won't be looking at adopting it. Your first public hearing is on September 2. That's when you're gonna get feedback from your community. You're not making any decisions about it tonight unless you all feel very strongly about anything on there collectively as a group. Then I don't think there's any new direction. Just wanna make sure you know that we're gonna post it. It's gonna be posted as it is, unless you basically are looking at each other saying, I think that we should give Greg direction that we should reduce something or to that effect, so.
We'll be revisiting it then, right?
Oh, you'll be revisiting an official public hearing posted, so,
Awesome.
yeah. Yep.
I just want to say this, that I'm hoping that all the people out there who are listening to this will share this information with their friends and family, that people will respond, that we will have more attendance at the next meeting, that people will really get involved, because this affects everyone. We're gonna catch the brunt of it no matter where we go with it, whatever. But people need to be involved in their city. They need to be involved in what's going on, and they need to know if we go through with this, why we're doing what we do, because that's always the biggest problem, is that no one really understands, and they're not here listening, or they're not listening online. But I would like to say that if and when we go through with the budget, that we focus on the things that we are going to be able to do, and one of them is to, first of all, balance the budget, but mainly is that we are not going to put that extra 5% water rate increase that was scheduled to come. We will not have to do that, and that we need to make sure people understand that even with this proposed budget, that we are still at the bottom of a chart of about 25 cities, a lot of them similar size and all, and that and they need to really understand that this is because of the last few years. This is why we are in the shape we're in. This is why this has taken so long. There's so many questions, there's so many emotions, especially on my part, because I am extremely emotional when it comes to money, believe me. But anyway, that's I just want to make sure everything gets out.
Well, and I'll go ahead and say, if it's cool, I mean, just want to echo what she said. If you've got something to say, you know, in social media, then we're gonna want you here to say it to us, and so we can't do anything about it if it's on social media, right? So for it to be productive, and I appreciate that it is out on social media, but for us to be productive in what we're doing, we need for you to show up either online, and you can ask questions through the online forum, or come here and ask questions, so we know that, you know, that there's concern with it. You know, social media is great, but it's not taking place of people not showing up. I see a lot of, I mean, this is a special meeting, but I see a lot of empty chairs, and I normally always see a lot of empty chairs.
So I think, you know, this is what is supposed to be part of the budget process right here. This debate, this discussion. I mean, obviously your employees want more money. I would. And so it's important that you're trying to balance this. And I think, you know, Councilmember Corbell raised kind of a good point, but I think it's probably good that when we talk about the sales tax side, so yes, I projected 500 more thousand in revenue. However, thank you. Take care. You take care. Prayers are with you, man. So I would just say, we actually are showing 188,000 less than last year.